Ma'am, please wait a moment.
Please check my ticket. My seat is 2A.
Welcome to EchoStory, where hidden truths rise, dignity finds its voice, and justice arrives when no one expects it. Priority boarding is not for people like you. The words cut across Gate B14 so sharply that conversation stopped. Evelyn Brooks stood in front of the boarding scanner with a first-class ticket in her hand. She was 62 years old, dressed in a simple navy suit with silver streaks running through her short dark hair. Across from her, gate agent Leah Grant held up one hand like a barrier. "Please step away from the priority lane before you delay the real first-class passengers." Evelyn slowly looked down at her boarding pass. Seat 2A, first class. Her name was printed clearly across the top. Before she could respond, a white businessman stepped behind her. Leah's entire expression changed. "Good morning, sir. Welcome aboard." She waved him through without even looking at his ticket. Several passengers noticed, and a teenage boy lifted his phone and began recording. Evelyn extended her boarding pass again and calmly asked Leah to examine it properly, but the gate agent pushed it back and ordered her to move aside. Moments later, Supervisor Daniel Reeves stepped between Evelyn and the boarding gate and threatened to have airport security remove her. Evelyn remained completely calm, looked at the clock above the gate, and said, "In 9 minutes you are going to wish you had simply scanned my ticket." Neither Daniel nor Leah understood what she meant. They did not know that the woman they were threatening to remove was the CEO of the airline whose uniforms they were wearing, and they had no idea their behavior was about to expose something far bigger than one humiliating incident. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching from and subscribe to EchoStory for more emotional stories of truth and justice. Earlier that morning, Evelyn had entered Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport without her executive assistant, security escort, or any special privileges. The decision was deliberate. Evelyn had built Aurora Skies Airlines from a small regional company into a respected national carrier, but over the previous year she had begun noticing strange inconsistencies in customer service reports. Official records claimed passenger complaints were decreasing, yet private messages reaching her office told another story. Elderly travelers were being spoken to disrespectfully, families were being treated like inconveniences, and premium passengers were being challenged because they did not appear wealthy enough. Every time Evelyn requested an explanation, regional management described the incidents as simple misunderstandings. Determined to discover the truth, she booked a first-class seat under her real name, but asked corporate operations not to notify the airport staff. She wanted to experience the airline as an ordinary passenger and see how employees behaved when they believed no powerful person was watching. When priority boarding began, Evelyn joined the correct lane and waited patiently. Leah stopped her before she could reach the scanner and told her the lane was only for first-class and elite passengers. Evelyn calmly explained that she was seated in 2A, but Leah barely glanced at the ticket before insisting that she had entered the wrong line. Moments later, Leah waved a white businessman through without inspecting his boarding pass. Evelyn asked why the same procedure had not been applied to him, but Leah became defensive and accused Evelyn of interfering with her work. Instead of scanning the ticket and resolving the issue, she called her supervisor, turning a simple verification into a public confrontation. Daniel Reeves approached with the impatient expression of a man who had already decided that Evelyn was the problem. Leah immediately told him that the passenger was refusing to leave the priority lane and was delaying boarding. Daniel did not ask Evelyn for her side of the story, nor did he properly examine her ticket. He simply announced that the gate agents were trained professionals and that Evelyn needed to follow their instructions. Evelyn held out her boarding pass and asked him to verify her name, seat number, and boarding group. Daniel glanced at it without taking it and questioned whether the ticket truly belonged to her. The businessman who had been allowed through without verification returned and pointed out that no one had asked him to prove his identity. Daniel ignored him. Evelyn produced her identification, but even after the name matched, Daniel refused to apologize or scan the ticket, claiming that there could still be an issue in the system. When Evelyn calmly asked him to use the scanner, he accused her of having a confrontational tone. A nearby passenger immediately defended her, saying that Evelyn was calmer than both employees. Embarrassed and angry, Daniel signaled to an airport security officer and told Evelyn she had two choices: step away until boarding was completed or be removed from the gate. Evelyn could have ended the confrontation by revealing her title, but she chose not to because she wanted to know what would happen to an ordinary passenger who had no executive authority. She asked Daniel one final time whether he was refusing to scan a valid first-class ticket. He answered by ordering her to step aside, while the security officer began walking toward them. Senior Flight Attendant Marjorie Hale appeared at the entrance of the jet bridge and immediately noticed the growing confrontation. After nearly 30 years with Aurora Skies, she understood both company policy and passenger behavior. At first she remained silent, but then she saw Evelyn's boarding pass lying on the counter. Seat 2A, first class, and the name Evelyn Brooks were clearly visible. Marjorie studied Evelyn's face and suddenly recognized her. She hurried toward Daniel and quietly urged him to check the passenger record again. But Daniel blocked her from the computer and ordered her to return to the aircraft. Marjorie hesitated, ashamed that the situation had already gone so far. Around them, several passengers were now recording. A teenage boy positioned his phone so it captured Evelyn's ticket and Daniel's name badge. A middle-aged woman announced that she had watched Evelyn show the ticket 3 separate times, while the businessman confirmed that he had been waved through without any verification. Daniel ordered the witnesses to stop interfering. Evelyn then removed a black executive access card from her purse, placed it on the counter, and told Daniel to call corporate operations. Laya looked at the card and laughed, dismissing it as a fancy membership card. Daniel said complaints could be submitted later through customer service. Evelyn quietly returned the card to her purse, stepped away from the counter, and called a direct corporate number. She identified herself only as Brooks and ordered the executive incident protocol activated, including preservation of gate cameras, boarding records, employee system logs, and security communications. When the call ended, she checked the clock and repeated, 9 minutes. Seconds later, Laya's scanner stopped working, Daniel's computer locked, the boarding screen changed to please stand by, and the approaching security officer received instructions through his earpiece not to engage with Evelyn. Daniel demanded to know what she had done. Evelyn calmly replied, "I made sure the truth could not be deleted." The following 9 minutes transformed the atmosphere at Gate B14. Daniel repeatedly attempted to log back into the system, but every attempt displayed access denied. Laya's confidence disappeared as passengers whispered and raised their phones higher. Then Naomi Bell, the regional vice president of Aurora Skies, rushed down the terminal with an airport operations manager beside her. Daniel immediately stepped forward and tried to describe Evelyn as a difficult passenger, but Naomi walked directly past him and stopped in front of Evelyn. In a voice filled with concern, she apologized to Ms. Brooks and explained that no one had informed the regional office that she would be traveling that day. Silence spread across the gate. Daniel repeated the name in confusion, and Naomi confirmed that the passenger standing before him was Evelyn Brooks, Chief Executive Officer of Aurora Skies Airlines. Laya's face went pale while Daniel began insisting that there had been a misunderstanding. Evelyn picked up her boarding pass and explained that a misunderstanding would have ended the moment either employee checked the facts. Instead, Laya decided that Evelyn did not belong in first class, and Daniel supported that assumption without investigation, before threatening her with security. When Daniel claimed that they had followed procedure, Evelyn asked which procedure allowed other passengers to board without verification. He had no answer. Several passengers offered their videos and witness statements, while Marjorie confirmed that the ticket was valid and that Daniel had prevented her from checking the record. Evelyn ordered Daniel and Laya removed from customer-facing duties pending a formal investigation. When Daniel appeared surprised that she had not fired them immediately, Evelyn explained that they would receive the fair investigative process they had refused to give her. The crowd understood that she was not acting out of revenge. She was showing them what real accountability looked like. Evelyn could have boarded her flight and allowed corporate employees to handle the incident, but as the gate was transferred to a new team, a black woman in a business suit approached and revealed that Daniel had treated her the same way 3 months earlier. Another passenger said that her elderly mother had been questioned at the same gate and had missed her connecting flight. Marjorie then admitted that similar incidents had been happening for years. Black passengers, elderly travelers, and people who did not look wealthy enough were routinely subjected to extra identification checks, questioned about premium tickets, or removed from priority lines. Complaints were often filed, but the same local managers involved in the incidents were permitted to review and close them as passenger misunderstandings. Evelyn immediately canceled her Los Angeles trip and ordered Naomi to secure every complaint associated with the Atlanta station over the previous 2 years before anyone could edit or delete the records. Inside the airport operations office, IT specialists copied local files and preserved security footage. Within an hour, they uncovered 43 complaints from only the previous 6 months that followed the same pattern. A retired school principal in a wheelchair had been accused of using another passenger's boarding pass. An elderly black couple had been told their first-class tickets were probably mistakes. A grandfather traveling with his grandchildren had been questioned about how he obtained premium seats. Every case had been closed with the same phrase, passenger misunderstanding. As Evelyn studied the approval chain, one executive's name appeared repeatedly across complaints from several airports. Harold Pierce, Senior Vice President of Service Compliance, had authorized the closure of dozens of cases. Evelyn realized the problem was no longer limited to 2 employees or 1 airport. Someone inside the company's leadership had created a system that rewarded silence. Harold Pierce arrived in Atlanta that evening wearing a perfectly pressed suit and the controlled expression of an executive accustomed to managing crises. Sitting across from Evelyn in an airport hotel conference room, he described the gate incident as an unfortunate frontline mistake and warned against turning one employee failure into a company-wide scandal. Evelyn pushed a stack of similar complaints toward him, but Harold dismissed them as a small percentage of millions of yearly passengers. He talked about shareholder confidence, legal exposure, performance statistics, and protecting the airline's reputation, yet never once mentioned the dignity of the people who had been humiliated. He presented a prepared statement calling the incident isolated and praising the company's immediate response. Evelyn accused him of trying to blame 2 gate employees and closed the matter. Marjorie then revealed that supervisors had instructed staff not to use words such as discrimination, profiling, or race in official reports. Harold angrily dismissed her statement as unsupported and suggested that Evelyn's personal humiliation was affecting her judgment. Evelyn replied that her experience had not created the problem, but had merely revealed it. After Harold left, Naomi warned that he would attempt to bury the evidence. That night, a supposed internal memo was leaked to the media carrying Evelyn's digital signature and appearing to prove that she had personally ordered discrimination complaints to be downgraded. News networks immediately accused her of hypocrisy. Harold called and advised Evelyn to step aside temporarily for the good of the company, offering to manage operations in her place. His careful words exposed his plan. The forged memo was designed not only to hide the system, but also to destroy Evelyn before she could expose it. After midnight, Evelyn gathered Naomi, Marjorie, and Cybersecurity Director Marcus Jennings in her hotel suite, where coffee cups and open laptops quickly turned the room into an emergency command center. Marcus explained that digital metadata would reveal the truth even if documents had been altered. His team discovered that the leaked memo claimed to have been created 8 months earlier, yet its signature used an encryption key introduced only 4 months ago, proving that the file had been backdated. The document originated from an executive template account controlled by Harold's administrative office, and although Evelyn's credentials had been copied, the final upload occurred while she was visibly attending a recorded board meeting. She could not have created or authorized it. Marcus then uncovered an archived compliance meeting that had been marked for deletion, but had not yet been permanently removed. When he played the recording, Harold's voice filled the hotel room. He instructed regional managers to reclassify discrimination complaints as customer misunderstandings because such cases damaged station performance metrics and executive bonuses. He told managers to keep the reports away from corporate review and silence persistent passengers with miles, upgrades, or vouchers. When another participant asked what should happen if passengers had witnesses or video evidence, Harold ordered them to contain the incidents at station level because the board did not need to see the pattern. Marjorie realized that passengers had not been compensated out of concern, but had been paid to remain quiet. Evelyn ordered secure copies delivered to outside counsel, the board, and regulators. Naomi suggested releasing a controlled statement from headquarters, but Evelyn refused. The injustice had begun publicly at Gate B14, so the truth would be revealed at the same place. When Harold messaged her that a public confrontation could destroy the airline, Evelyn replied that the truth had not endangered the company. The years of secrecy had. At 11 o'clock the next morning, Gate B14 was filled with television cameras, reporters, board members, airport employees, passengers, and curious travelers. Less than 24 hours earlier, Evelyn had stood in the same place while employees questioned whether she belonged in the priority line. Now she stood behind a podium and introduced herself as the CEO of Aurora Skies Airlines. She described how she had been denied boarding despite holding a valid first-class ticket, but explained that her personal treatment was not the greatest injustice. The greater wrong was discovering how many ordinary passengers had experienced the same humiliation and were never believed. She revealed the buried complaints, manipulated classifications, and internal system that protected company metrics instead of people. Harold interrupted and called her allegations unverified, but the board chair ordered him to remain silent. Naomi then played the compliance recording through the gate speakers. Harold's unmistakable voice echoed throughout the terminal, directing managers to hide discrimination complaints and prevent the board from seeing the pattern. When the recording ended, his confidence was gone. The board chair announced that independent experts had authenticated both the recording and the evidence, proving that Harold's office had forged the memo. She confirmed his immediate termination and stated that evidence had been referred to regulators and law enforcement for investigation into fraud, obstruction, and discriminatory business practices. Evelyn then announced that the formal investigation into Daniel and Laya had confirmed deliberate unequal treatment and misuse of security authority, resulting in their termination. She introduced permanent reforms, including independent review of discrimination complaints, automatic preservation of gate footage and boarding records, a direct passenger advocacy hotline, practical de-escalation training, and compensation for passengers whose complaints had been improperly dismissed. Finally, she appointed Marjorie to help lead the new Passenger Dignity and Advocacy Office because she had attempted to intervene when silence would have been easier. Later that afternoon, Evelyn stood at another Aurora Skies gate holding an ordinary economy boarding pass for seat 12A on a flight to Chicago. Naomi asked whether she was certain she wanted to travel in economy after everything that had happened, but Evelyn smiled and said she wanted to board just like everyone else. The newly assigned gate team checked every passenger's ticket properly, without waving anyone through based on appearance, and without subjecting anyone to unnecessary scrutiny. An elderly woman received patient assistance, and a father traveling with a small child was helped without being treated like an inconvenience. When Evelyn's boarding group was called, she joined the line instead of moving ahead. At the scanner, a young gate agent checked her ticket, looked her in the eye, and simply said, "Seat 12A, window seat. Have a pleasant flight, Ms. Brooks." There was no fear, exaggerated politeness, or special treatment, only the same basic courtesy every passenger deserved. Evelyn thanked her and walked down the jet bridge, where Marjorie greeted every traveler with the same warm welcome. After settling into her seat, Evelyn looked through the window at the Aurora Skies aircraft moving across the airport. Most passengers would never know what had happened at Gate B14, or how close the company had come to allowing dignity to become something reserved only for people who appeared important. As the aircraft rose above Atlanta, Evelyn understood that a first-class ticket could purchase a wider seat, faster boarding, and greater comfort, but it could never purchase human dignity because dignity should already belong to everyone. Her company had not changed simply because its CEO was humiliated. It changed because she finally listened to what powerless passengers had been trying to say for years. Real leadership was not using power to protect yourself. It was using power to protect the people whom the world refused to hear. If this story moved you, write "Dignity belongs to everyone" in the comments. Like this video and subscribe to EchoStory, where every hidden truth has a voice and every injustice is brought into the light.